Welcome, fellow bookworms, to Tibra's Den. My name is Whitney, and today we have my October wrap up. Now, October was a month. I got really sick at the end of September, and then the first week and a half in October, I was pretty sick. And then even once I started feeling better, I still struggled a little bit with congestion and whatnot, and I had really bad brain fog. The first 2 weeks of the month, I read 2 books. That was it. I did not read anything else. I think I finished the second book on the 15th or something. So it was a really rough month. So I did end up reading 12 books in total, but 10 of those books were the second half of the month. So yeah, it was the first half was not fun. I was also just really in the mood for rom-coms. I love Christmas rom-coms. And so this is kind of the season where I'm ready for those. And so I ended up watching, it's not a Christmas one, but I ended up watching The Wrong Paris, which is on Netflix. I watched that every night for, I want to say 2 weeks. I really enjoyed that one. It kind of hit the mark. It's kind of making fun of the Bachelor type shows and whatnot, but you still get those little serious bits of the rom-com vibes. Absolutely loved it. We tried to watch a few Halloween movies. We didn't really do much for Halloween. We did watch Hocus Pocus. We did get our pumpkins and we carved them. We get a pumpkin every year and carve it every year. So that was a lot of fun. I think I took a picture, so I'll insert that here. And yeah, we do that every year. That's my big thing. I love I'm obsessed with pumpkins. Um, and I'm cross stitching my mother, which actually I can show you that. I have it right here. I'm cross stitching my mother-in-law something as a gift, so I've been working on that as well, which is also taken away from reading. So this is the cross stitch right here, which is super cute and fun. And I'll show you the progress I have made so far. Which I always forget. Well, that's what I've done so far. So some of the bushes and part of the mama. And yeah, I really like how it's coming along. Cross stitch was one of my big hobbies before I kind of got into booktube and back into reading. I mean, I've always been a reader, but I didn't read as much as I do now, and cross stitch was one of my big hobbies. I definitely prefer to do it more in the cooler seasons, over the holidays and such. And so yeah, it's been really nice because since I've done booktube, I really haven't been cross stitching, and so it's really nice getting back into that. But of course, you can't read physically anyway and cross stitch, so that makes it a little bit hard. But you know what you're gonna do. I'm not a huge audiobook person, but it's hard to balance the hobbies sometimes. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into it. So my stats, I'll go over my stats first, and then I'll get into the books I didn't get to, and then the books I did get to, and from lowest to highest rated. And then I also do have a top 3, which does not necessarily correspond to star rating. It's just the ones that are going to stick with me the most, the ones that had the most impact on me, even if I didn't necessarily enjoy the writing or the story or whatever. So it has a little bit more of a lower star rating. It just kind of depends. Sometimes the top book is in the top 3. You never know. And so yeah, let's go ahead and get into the stats. So average, I had 107.22 pages per day, and I averaged 51.16 minutes. Originally, I had 10 prompts, I had 10 rollovers, and I did have 4 extra books. And like I said, I did end up reading 12 books total. My stats ended up being 3,324 pages. I read 9 books physically. I had 0 digital books. I had 3 audiobooks, which totaled 26 hours and 26 minutes. Fiction, I had 12. Nonfiction, I had 0. Rereads, technically 0. There's a book here. I both read it physically and then I listened to the audio. So technically when I listened to the audio, it was a reread, but I'm not counting it as such because it was just a weird situation, which I'll get into that. Top moods were adventurous, emotional, and then tied for third, we had mysterious, funny, and dark. My genres, again, these overlap, so some fit multiple genres, so there are more genres than there were books read. I had 7 fantasy, 5 LGBTQIA+, 3 horror, 2 classics, 2 young adult, 2 science fiction, 2 romance, 1 mystery, 1 manga, 1 literary, 1 historical, and 1 contemporary. So yeah, those were my stats. Let's go ahead and get into the books themselves. Now, like I said, I'm going to start from the ones I didn't get to. Now, this month, I was really hoping I could catch up on the Adventures in Aldea or Year in Aldea. I've heard it called both things. I was hoping to catch up on those because I'm really behind. I didn't read May, June. I did get July's read. I did not read August. And then I did have September, which technically I think I counted that in a rollover because I kind of mushed them together. So that would technically be an extra, not a rollover. But I had September and then October on there as well. October I was able to get into my game play, so that wouldn't have counted as an extra. But yeah, let's go ahead and get into those first. I have Anya laying here, kind of taking up space. So let's start from the bottom. So first up, this was, let's see, where is it? I don't have these ones in order here. So this one was actually from May's Aldea prompt, which I was going to go to 5B, which was to enter a cave and to read a dystopian. I also had it on a couple of games, and then I just scrapped that. But like I said, I was going to try if I could catch up in October, but it just didn't work out. So that was Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. This, I'm just over Aldea. I have a lot of things I want to read in November, and then December's 24 Days of Bookmas. And so the rest of the year is kind of booked out. So all these are just going to go back on the shelves. So that was the first one. So I didn't get May. I didn't get June, which was to solve traps, read a mystery. And I was going to read How to Solve Your Own Murder by Kristen Perrin. Again, just going to go back on the shelves. I do still want to read this, but it's just not going to happen this year. Then we had, for August, we had U8B, Use True Light and Read a Book with Light in the title. And I was going to read All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr. So, yeah, that's going to go back on the shelf for a different time. For, let's see here, September, it was 9B, Inspect Frost, a book with a light blue cover, and I was going to read The Night Sister by Jennifer McMahon. I have several of this author, and I haven't read them yet, any of them, but I'm really interested in trying this author because they all sound like ones I would really enjoy. But for now, this one's going back on the shelf. And then for October, it was Meet 10B, Meet Entry Wardens, to read a debut book. And like I said, I did get this to fit for my game. And that was going to be Pinocchio middle grade or younger. This is not a middle grade book, but it does follow younger characters. So that's why I was counting it as such. And that was going to be We the Animals by Justin Torres. And yeah, not happening. So there's that. So those were all the ones that I had from the year in Aldea that I didn't get to. Now for November, I was able to get November and December's books on my TBR, but because I didn't finish the rest of them, I'm not going to necessarily prioritize those in November. Both of them are ones I'm very interested in reading, so we'll just have to see if I get to them. Now, let's see here. So these are the ones I didn't get to. I am planning on still reading these. So this Pinocchio one will just go back in my jar because I didn't get to it and I'm not planning on fulfilling it. These other ones, I have the next books in the series on my November TBR, so I'm still planning on reading them. This first week in November, these are the books I'm going to be focusing on. So when I'm filming this, like I think you guys are going to be seeing this after, because this will come out on the 10th. And so we'll see. Like you won't know, but I'm just going to see how many I can get through in this first week, and then I have reading plans for the 10th of November that week. So we'll just have to see. Anyway, the first one is the first book in the Dreamland Billionaires series, and that's The Fine Print by Lauren Asher. This was for the prompt. It was the Mickey Mouse game, and it was Grumpy, does not want to focus, Grumpy Sunshine. And so these are kind of lower priorities. I have all three of the books on my TBR, but because I haven't actually started the series yet, I'd rather focus on finishing series. So if I run out of time, these are going to be the ones that kind of lose out, just because I am very interested in reading these, but because I haven't actually started the series, it's like they're lower priority. So we'll just have to see how that goes. Then we have the second book in the series, Terms and Conditions, and this one was for Encanto, generational family. And so, yeah, like I said, the third book is on my November TBR, but I need to read these two first, and they're just kind of lower priorities for me. Then this next one, I read the first two books in the series. I do want to read these next two. The fourth book is on my TBR. This is the third one. This was for the dictionary word of the day, and at the time it was flagrant. And I went with Before the Devil Breaks You by Libba Bray. Like I said, this is the third book in the Diviner series. And I just feel like Evie as a character is kind of has a flagrant disregard for rules. So that's kind of how I matched it to the word of the day. So I do need to read this before I read the fourth book. So, but because they're a little bit denser, I want to focus on books that are a little bit easier to read. But I would really like to wrap up that series. Then we had, things are falling apart here. This one, and again, this is one I have the third book on my November TBR, and this is the second book, The Girl in the Tower by Catherine Arden. It's the second book in the Winter Night trilogy. For this one, I had pulled the prompt from Treasure Planet, and it was search for treasure, but I used my reward token to forego this prompt. So this one will go back in the honey jar, and then the reward token is just used, so I don't have access to that anymore. But this one I'm very, very interested in, and so this is definitely a high priority for this first week in November. And so I can read this and then get to the third one. I absolutely adored the first one. Definitely have those seasonal vibes I'm looking for and everything like that. So hopefully, fingers crossed, I can get to it this week. Then we had another reward token used. This one was, I got a manga graphic novel, and I used to use my reward token to forgo it. So again, this will go back in the honey jar prompt jar. It's a honey jar prompt. It will go back in the honey jar. And I had chosen Fevered Star by Rebecca Roanhorse. Now, this one I will be reading in the second week because my plans for reading have to do with Native American authors. And since it's Native American Heritage Month, so that's kind of my plans for reading in the second week of November. So this one I will be focusing on in the second week, not this first week. And I'm very excited. I have I think a great lineup of Native American authors for that. The next one was an extra one I put on. It was my family book club pick like 3 months ago, I want to say. So, what month was it? October, September. August, I want to say. And that was The Twisted Ones by Teen Kingfisher. I can't honestly remember. But I have started this. I wanted to read it on Halloween since it's got those spooky vibes. But I've been watching rom-com, and I've actually started watching Christmas rom-coms and cross-stitching. So it's been kind of slow going. But I think I'm almost to the halfway mark. I'm not quite there. And yeah, I've been really enjoying it. Last night, there was something looking in the window at her, and I ended up having a little nightmare about that. So definitely gives those spooky vibes. I'm really enjoying this so far. And hopefully, now that we're kind of in a new week, we can get going. I just where I am at right now, like I said, I've been cross stitching, I've been watching the holiday rom coms. We actually went Christmas shopping this weekend because the last 2 years were really rough and we didn't end up buying anybody presents or anything like that. And so this year I'm just really in the Christmas spirit already. So we ended up doing our Christmas shopping. We went out to breakfast and then we went to Christmas shopping and then we ordered some stuff and we wrapped the presents we have. So I am the third day in November and I am done with my Christmas shopping. But anyway, my point is at night we're reading the Dungeon Crawler Carl books. And then I read this, but I'm not like pushing myself to stay up or anything. I just read this until I'm tired and then I put it down. But I am going to try to push myself today to get this read. So we'll see. But I'm very excited to continue that one because I really enjoyed it. So now we're into the books I did complete. And so we're into our star ratings now. We had 4 3-star, 4 4-star, and 4 5-star. So they were very like evenly matched. Kind of the bottom of the barrel was actually an audiobook that I did. This was my family's book club pick for, no, it wasn't. The next book is my family book club pick. This one was an option for the family book club pick, but only my sister and I ended up reading it together, even though it didn't win. We were both really interested in it. And that's Clown in a Cornfield by Adam Cesare. Now, if you watch my previous videos, like my TBR and whatnot, I overthought how to pronounce this author's name. I looked it up, and it was saying you pronounce it Cesare. And then I listened to the audiobook, and I was like, I way overthought that. It's just Adam Cesare. And so this one, I enjoyed the second half of it. So this one, it basically you have this daughter and her dad, and they lost her mom. Her mom dies, and so they end up moving to this small town. Her dad's a doctor, and they end up moving to this small town. And the small town, there ends up like they have this like mascot that's a clown, and then there ends up being like this murder spree, and it's this clown. This one, I went in fully expecting a slasher book, which the second half is. The first half is very much like teenage life in a small town. And the main character, I liked her character, but the rest of them, and it does have different viewpoints, the rest of them were so obnoxiously teenagers. Like, I just wanted to slap them. Like, they were teenagers in the most obnoxious way possible. And so in the beginning, like, you get this chapter, and something happens, and one of the characters that we're following, his sister ends up dying, and that's the very beginning of the book. Then we're like a year later, I think, and you have I would say she's the main character, moving into town with her dad. And so, she's meeting all the other people and getting introduced to kind of how life works in the small town. And so, yeah, so then she ends up going to this party that they're throwing at this like abandoned farm or whatever. And that's kind of when the killing stops. But when that doesn't start until halfway through the book. And so it's very kind of slow going. And with how obnoxious these teenagers were, I was just like, oh my goodness. But once I got into the slasher part, like, I'm like, okay, like, this is fun. But I wish it had really kind of just focused on that. and her trying to escape, these clowns and whatnot. But like I said, that doesn't happen until the last half of the book. The thing with her mother, it's like you either needed to devote more time with it or just leave it at her mom's dead and that's why they moved to this town. And so like he would just randomly insert that in there and like the trauma from that and whatnot. And it was unnecessary to the story, or like I said, if you wanted that depth and such, devote more time to it. Like one or the other. Don't just randomly throw it in for traumatic effect or whatever. I don't know. So yeah, I got a 3. I enjoyed the second half. That's what I was looking for. I was just looking for a fun slasher. And like I said, he either needed to develop it more and devote more time to that serious aspect. And I wish like if he was going to do that too, it had been more balanced where the little deaths had been more spread out. And then it kind of ramped up at the end, but it's like you have small town teenage life first half, and then slasher second half with random things, serious things just thrown in there. I don't know. So yeah, it was fun. I'm glad I just listened to it on audio and I didn't get a physical copy because I don't see myself visiting it. I haven't heard good things about the other books in the series, so I knew that going in. So my plan was only ever just to read the first book. And so yeah, I'm glad I gave it a try, but it's not something I would go back to at all. The next book, this is the one that we had 2. So I did listen to this on audio and I also read it physically. So the next one up, so I enjoyed this less than the audio, and this was the family book club pick. And that was Carmilla by Sheridan Le Fanu, Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu. And I'm glad I finally gave this a try. Now it says the dark sapphic romance that inspired Dracula. In the physical book, I did not get that sapphic. Like, yes, you have this female vampire that's preying on this young female girl, but like our main character, like she's just kind of like, what are you doing? Like, you don't. I would not advertise this as sapphic. Like it's a vampire story. A lot of vampires have that sexual nature to them, and it doesn't really matter whether it's male, female, or what. And yes, the vampire's obsessed with Laura, who's our girl. And so this one was just kind of boring. And it needed more development. It didn't explain some things. Like, to me, you have, in the beginning, you have when she's like 6 or something and she's in her nursery and the vampire visits her, but then you don't get anything until she's like 18. And to me, if this vampire is obsessed with her, you would think you would get a little bit more throughout the years. So that never really gets explained. The vampire has this mother, and it's like you never get an explanation about this mother figure. Like, is it her real mother? Like, obviously she's the one that's kind of setting up these situations to get the vampire into these households, but it's like it never really explains who this woman is, and things like that. It's kind of very slow in the beginning. I did like the vibes of the end, but yeah, it wasn't as it had vibes. Like, it had the vampire and like the gothic and spooky vibes, but it didn't have the atmosphere I was looking for. I wanted more from this, essentially. I was kind of bored at the beginning. Now, the audiobook I listened to was the Audible original one, and it's fully dramatized with a full cast. And so that was a lot more enjoyable. Some of the conversations, like the dramatized version that I listened to, it skips the prologue here and like part of the first chapter. It jumps right into when she's in her nursery, and it also added on Dr. What's his name? The doctor. I forget how to pronounce his name without seeing it. Halesius or something like that. Anyway, it inserts him, and he's talking like, okay, this young girl told me her story, and this is the story, which is not in here. It's not like him talking. It just tells about him. And then, like I said, in the first chapter, it skips over like the first part where she's kind of describing the state or whatever, and just jumps right into where the vampire's in her nursery. And then like some of like the conversations and such are a little bit more expanded upon. And so yeah, it was a lot more fun. And that dramatization did feel more sapphic, because of the way they voice acted and such. But both of them 3 stars either way. Like I said, I did enjoy the dramatized version more than this one because I was a little bored here. It is super short. It's actually really easy to read. I mean, some of like the wording and the phrasing and such, because it, is an old classic, is kind of like what. But overall, it was actually fairly easy to read. But I definitely enjoyed the dramatized version, with the full cast more so, even though they both got the same star rating. So there's that one. And then let's see here. I'm not even on the right page. So those 2 take up the next 2 spots. Like I said, it's the same book, but because of the changes, like I couldn't read it, like I couldn't do a tandem read. So I read the physical one first, and then the next day I listened to the audiobook. So that's why I'm counting them as 2 distinct reads, because I couldn't tandem read them together. And so they were kind of 2 distinct reads in my mind. And then the 4th 3-star, this one was for just a free choice in my game. And I had chosen Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score. This is the 2nd book in the Knock 'em Out series. I have the 3rd book on my November TBR. I really like this author's writing. Now, obviously, I only gave this one a 3-star. This one dropped down because I did not like Nash as a character at all. Like, I did not like how he treated Lena. So in this one, we're following Nash and Lena. And Nash is the brother of one of the main characters, Knox, in the first book, and he is the sheriff of the town. And so we're following him. Now, he has some trauma from a situation that happened in the first book, and also just like childhood trauma too, which Knox also had, dealing with their dad who's an addict. And so there's a lot of trauma. He's dealing with PTSD, and he's dealing with depression, which is all fine. And that's a lot to be dealing with. That's a lot of kind of baggage to carry into a relationship and such. But I think he treats Lena really unfairly, and that's what I didn't like. Like in the beginning, he's like, "Oh, she's the only thing that makes me feel alive," and he's like putting that pressure on her. And it kind of brings it around to more of an appropriate like situation regarding that in the end. Like it's not such an ick factor, but in the beginning, like the pressure he's putting on her, like please, like you're the only thing that brings me to life. Like the way he phrases it and the pressure he puts on her just gives me the ick. He also like kind of manhandles her sometimes. Like there's one situation, because she's kind of hiding something and the reason why she's in town and such, and he's kind of learning that, and she's like in a towel, and he's like, "I'm gonna take you to the police station if I don't get some answers," and like throws her over his shoulder and such. And that just like gave me the ick, like that manhandling, like no. And so there's things he's doing that's just inappropriate and I did not like. Um, and I don't think it was necessary. And like the trauma and such, like that could have still, like, that's enough. You don't need to dramatize it. And it's like he very much created his own drama. Um, and then Lena has her own trauma and such too. But the way like her baggage played into it, and like her, like she knew, and it was just kind of step by step, and it made more sense. Where Nash, it was like forced, like, dramatization of this trauma and such, and he kind of created his own drama, and I just did not like it. It gave me the ick. And so that was kind of it. There's a similar situation to what happens in the first book that happens here, and it's like I did not like how that played out in the end. um, Especially with Lena's character. Like I think she could have switched it around, and it would have been a lot more fun, and I would have enjoyed it more. especially with Lena's character and kind of how tough she is. And so I didn't like the ending either, and so that's why I ended up getting 3 stars. But I really like these characters, like that small town, and everything. And now we do get Knox's and Naomi's wedding in this one, and I have to say that brought tears to my eyes. Like it made me emotional. I really like the wedding scene in this one at the end from the 2 main characters from the first book. But yeah, I was just very disappointed in Nash as a character and him creating his own drama. And then, like I said, the way the ending played out, it was just too similar to the first one. It kind of gave me the ick too, because you have this badass character, and you could have utilized that as the author, you know? So there's that one. Then, like I said, we had 4 4-star books. The first one was a rollover from September. This was for the Cryptic Creatures Readathon. I actually have my little bookmark still in there, my Bigfoot bookmark, and this was put on by Tricia at Sweet Tea Reads. I always want to say tree, but Sweet Tea Reads, and that was The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. This was for the prompt Jersey Devil to read a book with a family dynamic. And this one definitely has that, because you have this family that has this summer camp, basically. And I forget how many years ago their son actually disappeared. And now this year, their daughter wants to go to the summer camp, and then she ends up disappearing. And honestly, this was the beginning of the month when I was still very sick. And so my memories of this are a little bit muddled. I did enjoy it. I think the biggest reason it didn't get 5 stars for me was you're jumping between character point of views, and then you're also jumping timelines as well. And even like, so you're, jumping back to the timeline with the son and then jumping forward to present day with their daughter. And even within like timelines, you're jumping back, and referencing things. There was definitely some point of views that were completely unnecessary. It did not add anything to the story. It just added to make it more confusing. The same story could have been told without those POVs. And I wish it had just focused, like, there's the mom's POV, there's the daughter's bunkmate POV, but there was like a couple other, like 2 POVs. One was one of the guys that was suspected in the son's case, I guess. And so it was unnecessary. The same story could have been told without those extra POVs, and it was already so confusing. Jumping between POVs and timelines, and then timelines within the timelines, like super confusing. The other thing was kind of the reasoning for, like, you learn throughout, like, what happened with the son's case, and kind of the reasoning behind that was just kind of like, what? Like, I did not enjoy that aspect at all. And so, yeah, it was just, I think the formatting was a little bit rough and such, but the story itself was really enjoyable. I loved the setting, like the summer camp setting and such. I really enjoyed that. I did like the author made the daughters, like, yeah, there's parallels because they both disappeared, but they're different ages. And the reasoning behind the daughter's disappearance is completely different than the son's. So I really enjoyed that aspect. But yeah, 4 stars on that one. I did enjoy it. It is a heavy book. Like, it's just heavy. So there is that one. The next one was for which on the Cryptic Creatures, it was a bingo board one, and I only missed 2 squares. And so, I did end up finishing those 2 prompts. And then for my Aurelium reads, I think I missed 4 books total. But it was a class for each of my callings, because I have 3 callings. I'm doing the Godseer calling, the Necromancer calling, and the Herbologist calling. Now, this one was for my Herbologist calling. The class was Alchemy, which was liquid O level, sorry, alchemy O level, and this was Liquid Sunlight, a sun on the cover. And so I had chosen Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner. This is book 2 in the Fallen Gods series. And then I also had to read book 3 for this class for Q level, which we'll get to that in a second. So I really enjoyed this series. So I reread God Killer in September, and then like I said, these two, the next two in the series, it's a trilogy, were for my herbology calling. This one, so I gave the first book 4 stars as well. And with these ones, it was really kind of the pacing of the story. Again, you have multiple point of views. And just like in the first book, like the pacing was a little bit rough, and I didn't really truly enjoy it till towards all the characters kind of get together, and they're kind of on the same path. In this one, our one character, Kissin, was horrible with names. So the characters are kind of separated again, and she was one of my favorite characters. Like, I really like her sass and such, and we just didn't get enough of her. I didn't feel like it's really focusing more on Elogast and Inara, which is the little girl. So basically, let me backtrack. This series, you have Kissin, and she's a god killer. There was a god war, where the old gods and the new gods kind of battled it out, and then the humans kind of got involved. And then the king ends up banishing all gods. Like, you're not allowed to worship them or anything, because the gods have power based on people worshiping them. So if there's nobody worshiping them, they, disappear. But if people are worshiping them, they gain power. And so he bans all gods, but he kind of has a secret based on something that happened in the God War. So we do get his point of view. And so in this book, the main premise is the king is marching on the city Lesia, which is where this god killer is from. And then you have Elogast, who is a former knight, and really close friend of the king's. And then you have Inara, who has this god connected to her. And so she originally goes to Kissin to try to figure out why this god is connected to her. He doesn't have a shrine, and they can't be separated. Like, if he tries to leave her and go far away from her, it causes them pain. And so in the first book, they're going to this city where the big god war happened. And then in this book, they're all separated. And the king's, marching on Lesia. And so Inara is learning more about her connection to the god, her little god Sketty, who's so, like, I just love that, his character. And so yeah, they're all kind of separated, and it's more focused on kind of the siege of the city and such. And you don't get a whole lot of Kissin. You get her here and there, and she's learning more about things behind the scenes. And so yeah, it was just kind of the pacing again. Like, it was just really hard for me to really get into a flow of the story, because I start to get into it, and then the POV would change, and kind of the plot of this one just wasn't as enjoyable for me, so that got 4 stars. The next book was for both the Cryptic Creatures readathon. It was for the Kraken prompt, which was to read a book with pirates. And then it was also to complete my Necromancer calling this round. And the class was Restoration O level. That's all I needed to do for that class. And it was Unbroken Focus Tincture to read a single point of view. And I read Vengeance of the Pirate Queen by Tricia Leveseller. I love this author. I really love this author a lot. This one was the only backlist book I have. She recently released a new one, which is her first adult book. And so I wanted to finish the backlist. I also read Warrior of the Wild in September, which was the other backlist book I hadn't gotten to yet. So this is the third book in the first book was Daughter of the Pirate King, and then second book was Daughter of the Siren Queen. And so this is the third book, but we're following, instead of Alosa, we're following Zorinda, I want to say is her name. Doesn't say there. Let's see. Sorinda. Yeah, Sorinda. And then she goes on this quest for the pirate queen, Alosa. and her helmsman is a character named Kieran. Now this references the other books a lot and situations from the other books, which it's been a while. Like I don't know, probably years since I read those first two books. So I didn't get those references. And maybe if I had read these, back to back, like I remembered enough that I was fine reading this without revisiting the other ones. But some of those references I was kind of like, huh? And I just did not feel the chemistry between our two main characters. I love the story itself, but this is a romantasy. And so not feeling that chemistry between the two characters was a little bit rough, and it's only told from Sorinda's point of view because it's single POV, right? And I think it would have been worked better if we got Kieran's point of view, because Sorinda is very closed off for reasons, and it makes sense for her character. But I think that's part of why I didn't feel that chemistry, because she was very closed off and she was just shutting it down. Like nope, not interested. And it made sense for the character, but you have that romance element. You want to feel that chemistry, or if it was just a little bit more on the back burner. But I really liked the plot line. So basically, they had spies on this the Land King ship, but that ship disappeared and went into the uncharted waters and disappeared. And so she's on a mission to go find out what happened to these girls. And so they're going to find out what happens, and then it progresses from there. I really can't say more without giving it away, but I really like the plot of the story. There's kind of this um the kind of this enemy character that's immortal, and they're trying to have to kind of figure that out. And I really, really enjoyed that. I did enjoy the friendship between Sorinda and Kieran. And I really kind of just wish it didn't have that romance aspect, honestly. If it had just been their friendship, because she is very closed off and she doesn't get friendly with people. So I think, like I said, if it just didn't have that romance, it probably would have been a 5-star, because I enjoyed the plot of the story itself. But yeah, overall, I had a good time. I love this author's writing, and I do want to reread the series and read them all together, so I have those moments fresh in my mind between Sorinda and Kieran. But overall, I enjoyed it, but just a 4-star, that romance kind of just really let it down. Let's see here. And then the last 4-star, which is such a shame. Ugh, sorry, I had a coughing fit. I still have a cough just randomly, from being sick. And now, of course, Anya's all worried about her mama. I'm gonna live, don't worry. She's so silly. If you cough, if you sneeze, I call it her Snoopy face. Her ears go back and she just gets all wide-eyed and are you okay? She's such a sweet little girl. But anyway, so my last 4-star was another rollover, and it was again for Aurelium, and this was to complete my Godseer calling this round, which was the class Demonology. Again, just needed an O level, and it was Impling Outbursts and Emotion in the title. And for that one, I chose The God of Lost Words by A.J. Hackwith, using lost as the emotion. You can feel lost. This is the third book in, I guess it's the Hell's Library. Yeah, Hell's Library series. This one, oh, again, it's just the pacing. You have multiple point of views, and it's just something about it. It makes it really hard to get into. Every book in this series has been a 4-star for me, even though I really love the series. It's probably going to be a favorite series of all time, but they're all 4-stars, which is really weird. And it's just with those multiple point of views. And I appreciated the POVs, the multiple POVs in this one a lot more, because again, you're kind of separated and you kind of needed those POVs. But it was just the pacing of it. You kind of start to get in it, and then it changes and you kind of just have to reset. So basically in this one, we're following Claire, as one of the main characters, and she in the first book is a Hell's librarian for the Unwritten Wing, or the librarian of the Unwritten Wing, which is connected to Hell. It's not part of Hell, but it's connected to it. You have to read the series to understand. Anyway, in the first book, she has one of her books, which is a character in here called Hero, and books can kind of like come to life and manifest as a character and such. Well, he goes on the run, and so she goes after him. And while they're there, they end up getting confronted by this angel, Ramiel. And so he's another one of the characters we're following. And then we also have Claire's assistant, Brevity. And so in the first one, like they're trying to find like this codex, basically, which is what the angel thinks they're after initially, even though she's just after Hero. The angel thinks they're after this codex, and so they kind of go on this quest and adventure trying to figure out what this codex is and such. And then it kind of morphs from there in the next two books, and it's more about what these unwritten books are, what the libraries are, because there's the unwritten wing in hell, but there's also other wings in different, and a lot of them we learn in this one are part of like paradise afterlife. They're all part of an afterlife place. They're all connected to like the afterlife, but a lot of them are like the paradise type afterlives where the unwritten wing is connected to hell. And of course hell wants souls, and so it's kind of like they're trying to figure out, hell's kind of after this library as well, why they're trying to figure out what books are, what the unwritten wing is, like what unwritten ink is, what the books are, what the library are. This one didn't have as much of the questing element as the other two books did. The first one had the best like questing element, like they're going places. The second one like was a little less intense, but it still had the questing element, and then this one has it a little bit less. You do have moments where there's like they're going to different places, but it's not as prevalent in this one. This one's really more focused on what are these books, what are the libraries, and what does hell want with them, essentially. And yeah, it was just the pacing of it. Like, it was really hard just to completely immerse myself into, which is such a cool premise. The characters are very vivid and distinct, and I absolutely love them. I really like the relationship. You have a relationship between Claire, Hero, and or Ramiel, the angel, which I really enjoyed. Because it's not quite a love triangle. I would say it's more of like a why choose, or um like maybe poly. I don't really know. I don't really read that kind of thing. But it's not a romance either very much. Like, it's very much on the back burner. It's just kind of a slight undertone to the story and their relationship. Like, you get that from them. But yeah, I really love the characters together, and Brevity's in there as well. And I really kind of like that conversation about what is a story, like what is a book. Even humans, like, our stories. Like, yeah, they might not be a story in a book, but like, what is humanity, and what is a soul, and what are libraries? Like, I really like kind of that existential like conversation in here. Like, it's so good, and it's just so sad that the flow was just off for me, because it's gonna be a favorite series. Like, it's really gonna stick with me. But unfortunately, they're all 4 stars. It's a 4-star series, even though it's gonna be a favorite of mine, probably. Next up, we have our 5-star reads. So again, we have 4 of these. The first one, whoops, a book fell over. The first one was for my character prompt for the game, which we got Kenga and Rue, which is to either read a manga, graphic novel, or a children's book. I went with a manga. And so I read the 3rd volume of the Spy Family series by Tatsuya Endo. So I'm up to volume 3. The second one wasn't my favorite of the series, but volume 3 brought it back around. Like, it's very cute. You basically have Twilight, and he is a spy, and he's on this mission, and he needs to infiltrate the school to get to the guy that he's trying to get to. And so he ends up having to get a daughter who ends up being a telepath, so she knows he's a spy. Well, the school is very like traditional, so he needs to have the family unit. So he ends up marrying Yor, I think is her name, and she is a assassin. So he doesn't know that. She doesn't know he's a spy, and the little girl Anya, who I have my Anya here, but Anya knows because she's a telepath. And this was just fun. Like initially you have what is the first one? Her brother, that's right. So Yor has a brother, so they're meeting her brother, Twilight is, or Lloyd is meeting her brother, and they're trying to like, oh, this is a real marriage. And so that was a lot of fun. And her brother's actually a part of the secret police who are looking for Twilight. So, you have that dynamic. Then we're following Anya, and she's at school, and she's trying to earn these Stella stars, I think is what they're called. And if you get so many, you get into like this, what is it called? I'm having trouble with my words today, but basically, like this group, if you earn these stars, you get part of this special group in the school, and that will help her dad access, or her fake dad, but her adopted dad access this guy if she earns these stars and gets into this group. And so there's like a dodgeball game and such, and it was just so much fun. And then at the end, you have like the extra mission or whatever, and they're going on a date, and that was fun. Like it's just very cute, very fun, which is what I enjoyed about the first book. The second book is more them trying to get into the school, and I just didn't enjoy that one as much, but this definitely brought it back around. And I just had a great time. I do have volume 4, and I hinted to my husband like, hey, I only have one more volume of this, might be good to get me volumes 5 and 6 for Christmas. Like just saying. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, super cute. I love this manga series. It's just fun. It was a good time. I sat and did it in one evening, and just had a great time with it. The next one is the other rollover for my herbology class. Again, I'm working on alchemy. This was Q level. Blossom properties, cover in your birth flower color. And the little chart that G had put up was my birth flower. I'm September birthday, so it was aster. And specifically, she had a purple aster on that little chart. So I did the third book in the Fallen God series, and that is Faithbreaker by Hannah Kaner. And this one, so the other 2 books were 4 stars. This one was obviously a 5-star. This one worked better. We still had the multiple point of views, but I think part of the other one was the other 2 were like the chapters were a little bit shorter. They weren't as developed. Where this one, we spent a little bit more time in the chapters. And so by the time it broke and went to the next point of view, like, and sometimes you would have like a couple chapters with the same character or whatnot. But by the time it broke, like it was good. Like where she ended the chapters and changed the point of views were good. Like you were ready for that change. And then when you changed the point of view, it continued the story where you needed to be and such. And so this one, we're basically following, again, the same characters, but this one, now they're kind of uniting against a specific god. And so it kind of brings it back around to like the original The God Wars and such, but now you have the specific god. And again, the characters are kind of separated, but it's a little bit more balanced. And like I said, the where she ended the chapters and changed the point of views were better placed than in the other ones. So the flow was better. And so it was easy just to get into and read it. I really liked the character arc of Inara specifically. So she's 12 and 13. Like I think in this one she's now 13. She's had her birthday. And so you'll get like there's gonna be a little bit like of her being a preteen and such. And in the second book in particularly, she was a little bit insufferable. In this one, she still has those moments, and it makes sense for her age. Like, it definitely makes sense. But in this one, like, you really see like her, and she really kind of comes into her own. And I absolutely love the character arc of specifically Inara in this one. I love the relationship between Kissen and Elo, because they do have a physical relationship, but they're not like in love with each other, so to speak. Like they care about each other, yeah. And I really just kind of like that dynamic in that. Like normally you don't get it. It's either all in or all out. This series has great disability rep, LGBTQIA plus rep. Like it has great rep all around, but yeah, this one just worked better all in all. And I really, really liked Inara, and I liked, like she learned some lessons. Her and Sketty together, like I just love those two. They're dynamic. I just love all these characters. I love the way this one was formatted. I think it was a great kind of end to the series. So that was a 5-star for me for sure. Then this next one was for Little Red Riding Hood. It was a fairy tale retelling. And I've had this one for a long time. This was on my priority reads for the year, so I'm glad I ended up getting to it. Now, I did end up listening to this via audio. So I listened to Carmilla, A Clown in the Cornfield, and then this one I ended up listening to audio as well. Because I was sick the beginning of the month, the house was kind of a mess, and I was like, I need something to listen to while I get this house sorted out. And so I kind of looked to see what was available based on my TBR, and I decided to go with In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. I'm actually really glad I listened to this, and I'm glad I finally got to this. Like, oh my goodness. I never read a TJ Klune before, and this is based on Pinocchio, and I loved like how much Pinocchio elements you get in here. And I'm not a huge Pinocchio fan. It wasn't a favorite from my childhood. I haven't watched it a whole lot, but I got the references. I was like, oh, that's from that part of Pinocchio or whatnot. Like it's definitely there, but it's so unique and so fresh at the same time. And so basically, you're following so horrible Victor, and his dad Gio, who is a robot. Victor is human. His dad's a robot. And then you also have Nurse Ratchet and Rambo, um, who Nurse Ratchet is a nurse robot and Rambo is a vacuum cleaner robot. And so they're in the wild and there's like a junkyard. And so he's going into the junkyard. And so that's where he finds Nurse Ratchet and Rambo. Nurse Ratchet is like a sociopath, and she is so funny. I'm not a big humor person in books. Like, I really struggle. I don't find a lot of things funny. This one, Nurse Ratchet had me laughing so hard. I absolutely loved Nurse Ratchet. Rambo is annoying. Like, and the narrator for this book, I think it was Daniel Henning, I want to say, but the narrator like did such an annoying voice for Rambo too, but it fit the character so much. And it's like he's so annoying and he gets under your skin, but he's part of the family, So you love him anyway. It was kind of that situation. And the way he was able to do that, like it was such an annoying robot, and you're just like, oh, but at the same time, like he's part of the family. You love him anyway. Like it was just so well done. And the narrator, the way he did the voices and such, like was so well done. And then you also have Hap, who's another type of robot. And so they end up. The first half is very much like this family, like it's definitely kind of a found family aspect with him as the human and then the robots and such. And so you're really the first half is kind of just focused on that, like the family and them together and whatnot, and then build rebuilding Hap and such. Well, something happens, and there's these robots called the Old Ones that are in the junkyard, and they're very dangerous. Um, and something happens, and basically these other robots show up, and they end up taking Vic's dad. And so they're having to go on this quest to go save Vic's dad. And I just really like the conversation about sentience and what it is to be human, and just because like the robots were built for something, they still had a choice of who they wanted to be, and that comes into play very much so with Hap in particular and Vic's dad. And I really, really like that. And kind of just that conversation of they're sentient and they're built for this specific thing, but like, is that all they are, and what choices do they have? They're not just puppets, and oh, I absolutely loved it. There's a coziness to this, was really good. And the robot element it was just good. Like I enjoyed it, the way he brought in like the blue fairy and such, and the circus guy, the way he brought that in was really good. Like, and like the fox, it's just it was done so well, and there's like this cozy aspect, this found family aspect, but at the same time there's like that deeper conversation as well, and the humor. I was not expecting the humor and to enjoy it. So yeah, second place only because, and I have a feeling this is gonna be a theme each month, that I read one of these books with my husband. So it lost out only because we have the second book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series, which is Carl's Doomsday Scenario by Matt Dinniman. So my husband and I are reading these together. I read aloud. I'm actually really surprised we managed to finish this one in the month, but we were both jonesing for this because we read the first book in August, and then I was like, September's Aurelium. We're not reading the second book in September. There's just no way. And then I was sick the first half of October, so we didn't get started on this till the second half. It is like 371 pages, so just under 400. And yeah, we just every night we were ready for Carl. And we've already started on the third book, and so yeah, we just absolutely adore the series. And I think each month this is just going to be the top book that we read them because they're just so good and so much fun. Like I said, we're reading them aloud, which definitely plays into it because like we'll come across something and we'll discuss it, or we'll come across something funny and we'll break and we'll both laugh at it, you know. And so that definitely adds to the experience of reading these books. But even if I wasn't reading it aloud with my husband, I still think these would be the top books of the month. They're just a lot of fun. So this one, we are following Carl and Princess Donut. And so basically what happens is these aliens come, and anybody who was inside ends up dying because they take all the resources from the earth, or, you know, that like buildings and such. They take all that. But if you're outside, you survived, and you can go down to this dungeon. Um, and you go down to the dungeon, and there's different levels. So it's like RPG game, but you also have like a reality show for the aliens. So just the premise itself is fun. He has his ex girlfriend's cat, Princess Donut, who ends up, you know, becoming a player in the game as well. And so they're just battling through this dungeon together. And so in the second book, they end up, I think they're on the third level in this one. And this one has more, instead of just battling like mobs and such, it has more of like certain quests that they have to do, which I thought was a lot of fun. And you're getting more development of the characters, you're getting more development of like the political situation in the universe and such. And so you're getting a little bit more to it, but we haven't quite gotten into it in this one. It's kind of setting up, and it just was fun. I really like the questing element. Princess Donut is kind of coming into her own a little bit. Her dynamic with Carl is a lot of fun. They have a pet named Mongo, which he's like a velociraptor, which is really enjoyable. And just them kind of figuring things out and going through this dungeon. Like, it's such a great time. And we're already started the third book, like I said. We're about like 70 pages in that one, I want to say. But yeah, I absolutely love the series so far. Like, obviously, we've only read two, but they're so good. And I know from watching other people, like, they just get better. Like, uh, this series is 100% worth the hype, even if you're not a gamer. Like, because I've seen some people, like, they're not gamers and they're like, I don't know that book's for me. They end up trying it and they love it. Even if you're not a gamer, it's so much fun. Like, there's a lot of humor. I hate pop culture references, and this is like nothing but pop culture references, but it really works for the story. It makes sense. And so I'm obsessed. I'm completely obsessed with this series. So even if you don't think it's for you because you're not a gamer, you're not really into sci-fi or whatnot, I think you should give it a go because they're so good. The characters are great, and it's just a good time. So those are all my star ratings. But of course, we have our top three. So the first one, actually, in the top three, I'm gonna go with The God of Lost Words by A.J. Hackwith. Like I said, even though these have all been 4 stars, I love the series itself. The conversations around the meaning of the library, what a soul is, what these books are, everything like that. The conversation around that is just, I absolutely love it. It really makes you think. The found family element, like these characters together, they really are a family, and I love the dynamics between them. And then the setting, like the libraries, how they're connected to the afterlife, and the different connections, like what the library holds in connection with the afterlife. I think that's so much fun. So that is my top book of the month for sure. It's definitely going to stick with me. Then we have Carl's Doomsday scenario. Again, just the humor. Like, it is so funny. There's one scene where I was laughing so hard. My husband and I were both laughing so hard, but I was laughing so hard I had tears running down my face, and it took us probably a good 5-10 minutes to get back to the story because we were just laughing so hard at it. So the humor is great. The quest element in this one in particular, I like that. Like, it wasn't just them killing mobs trying to level up. There's actually like that questing element, which I enjoyed. The dynamic between the characters is really, really great. I absolutely love their dynamic. And then the political commentary too, like I said, um, there's a lot, and the whole thing is like, Carl, you will not break me. Like, you can play your little games and such, but you will not break me. I will figure this out. I absolutely love it. And then also the top three is In the Lives of Puppets by TJ Klune. This one, Nurse Ratched, and that humor, like I said, that had me laughing out loud while I was cleaning and such. Like, she was just so funny. It was so good. The quest and again found family element, I really enjoyed that. Like, there's kind of a theme about what I was enjoying here. And then the meaning of sentience, and like what it means, like you have a choice, like, even though you might be on one path and you think that this is what you're doing, this is what you're created for, this is your purpose, like maybe you can do something different. And then the Pinocchio elements in that retelling, like those elements were very much there, but it was done in a fresh and unique way. Like I said, I'm not a huge Pinocchio fan, but I really enjoyed seeing those elements there and be like, oh yeah, that's from that. And recognizing those elements. Like I said, he really made it where, yes, you can tell this is a retelling, but in a fresh and unique way. So that was my third book in the top three. And so, yeah, that is it. Um, I said it was a rough month in the beginning, but the second half really picked up for me, and I read a lot of great books. I would love to know if you've read any of these books, if you're interested in reading any of these books now that I talked about them. Ani looks so pathetic back here. Maybe what your favorite book from the month was. If you just want to let me know you were here, and that you are watching and you're helping to support the channel by commenting, you can always leave a rabbit or any type of animal emoji down in the comments below. I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys here. Happy reading, everyone. Bye.